Never really gets old reliving that big Pegasus win here a couple of years ago by City of Light as we move forward off that intro and begin a 12 race Saturday. And as you can see, in the big city of Hallandale Beach, the weather is on the idyllic side of things. We are fast and firm here as we'll shift from outside and come home and, in fact, spend the next half hour or so beneath the bright lights of our clubhouse studios here with Jason Blewett joining you. And it's good to have you with us, everybody. And as we say, however and wherever, it is absolutely appreciated. And you better get used to seeing a 12-horse field and a robust odds rundown, because this first race at about 12:45, 12:50 is the perfect placemat to move forward. It's a very difficult, excellent day of racing. Now, before we go forward, we take a step back, do a little housekeeping, and in this case, I've got to salute three winners. I had four, but Chris, Michael, and Charles all had five, so congratulations is absolutely due for a great job and beat the expert, and you'll be getting contacted to receive your Gulfstream Park polo shirts. Well played, gentlemen, and we'll do it again next Friday afternoon here as the month of April progresses. We progress, and with that, the Rainbow Six continues to grow in size. Certainly the guarantee, that definitely applies with $300,000, the guaranteed minimum on this 12-race Saturday, April the 4th. We get right into things. In fact, a couple of pick fives on the card, and I'm going to take a little shot at the early pick five this afternoon, in which I think a lot of people will probably, if you're on the more budget-minded side of things like I am, I think Pepe the Hunter in the second race is going to be more or less, again, for budget-minded players, that horse is probably tiptoeing along the lines of a universal type single as he takes a big drop in class. And you can see early in the betting, he's a pretty clear favorite in the double will pays. So he is the building block single and an $18 ticket. That gave me some coverage in the surrounding legs. In fact, 3, 8, 11 in both races, 1 and 3. And in fact, I am 3-11 to start this card. Board's going to change a little bit between now and the 60 minutes or so before the race begins. But the one constant will likely be, as we get closer to race time, the number 8 Blessed Journey will be favored. And if you like this horse, and I think he's clearly a player, although I don't fully trust him, this race could be as just simple as him dropping in for 16,000. That said, his form after being claimed for a lot more than 16,000 has just been iffy and average at best, and we'll see if the drop can wake him up. But he's unequivocally the biggest story of this race. The 12 Duelist might be a little bit of a wise guy horse. Now with trainer Matt O'Connor, did a good job here over the winter with horses like Dream Marie, and he's more of a new kid on the block, if you will. And this horse coming out of a loss against a 3-to-5 shot Crypto Gold, and this horse did have a little bit of trouble last time out and does get hot rodding Tyler Gaffleone with 7 wins, and I misspoke on the barn. We've got Matthew Williams and a Matthew O'Connor, both new kids on the block. Matthew O'Connor sending out the number 12 Duelist, formerly trained by Carlo Vaccarezza. This is really like an atypical Jimmy Jerkins looking horse, the 3 punchline. Jimmy doesn't compete in all that many maiden claiming races, but I thought he'd be a bigger price than the Luch drop down, who's going to be favored in this race, and felt the dip in for 16 would probably and hopefully wake the number 3 punchline up in the first race. Let's move on to the main track. We've got a field of 7, and this is a scratch-reduced field of 7 in the second half of today's early double. And I would imagine most people, I don't know this for a fact, this is just an assumption, I would imagine, though, that the majority of horsemen looked at this race and saw the presence of the 10 Pepe the Hunter and maybe said, I'll wait for another day to run in a $7,000 claimer, because on paper, Pepe the Hunter is just a layover in this race. If he runs anywhere back to his effort on December 27th or February 6th, he's probably, unless somebody really runs gigantic in this race, he's probably too much horse. Where maybe it gets a little gray is, even considering Frank Calabrese, who's the owner, does this all the time, and this is more or less his MO, it's still a pretty deep drop in class, but I'm going along the assumption that this horse is just doing what this barn and what this outfit does, and A is okay with the 10 Pepe the Hunter. If I was going to use another and to try to beat the big favorite, it would be the 3 So Long Chuck, just by virtue of him taking a little bit dip down the claiming ladder this afternoon. He's got more speed. Maybe that's the plan of attack there with a horse like the 3 So Long Chuck. Just get in front of the 10 Pepe the Hunter and see if you can outwire him and outrun him from the gate in race number 2. As we stay on the main track, a little less distance here, cutting back to a sprint in Saturday's third. We've got a 3-and-up filly mare, 12-5 to 10-5 claiming race here, and a field that I looked at for quite some time and ultimately felt it might have been no tougher than backing the David Fox drop down, the number 9 So Dear. A moot point now with that horse scratched, and a notable scratch out of this cast of low-level maiden claimers. You're probably looking at a situation where the 8 Toonie Looney has just run a little consistently better than the competition and is today in lifetime start number 8, the day for this filly by Tisway for trainer John Vinson. She's the horse to beat with the 9 So Dear scratched out of this race, although I gave a look to both Barboza horses who I have highly rated, and we'll see if Toonie Looney busts through in that third race. Moving on to the fourth, we'll stay with the maiden claimers on the main track. In fact, our third consecutive race over the dirt in race number 4 is a 3-and-up $16,000 to $14,000 claiming race that I think the starting point. And this race has a number of new shooters and quite a different it's a pretty eclectic crew as far as who's coming out of where, who's making a different move or changing or switching things up today. And there's changes galore, in fact, with, I think, the right starting point in this race. The number 8, Nothing for Free, just being a Mark Casse-trained second-time starter who's down in class. And this horse shares a number, I think, of relevant parallels to Threshold, who won here yesterday afternoon, just got the money over my horse in Starship Bubba. So I do like that the barn basically pulled the exact same second-time starting, dip down the maiden claiming ranks move yesterday for a win here. And I'm going to take Tyler and Mark Casse and assistant trainer Nick Tomlinson with the 8, Nothing for Free. But I could give a look to the 1 Mighty Fast, who keeps Louis Saez. I think that horse is very, very likely to run a better race than he did last time out for trainer Gustavo Delgado. Little less distance today might really get the 2 Uno Baby Bird, who had been working so sharply before his 3-year-old return for Kathy Ritvo. 6.5 could be a good distance for him. And the number 5 horse, that is, WW Archie, is worth a look, coming in out of a pretty decent race last time out, or a race that was certainly on the buyer scale a lot higher than some of these other horses have been running of late. Let's move on to the 5th, and thankfully for me anyway, we've got our first B-roll replay to get to, and I think it's a noteworthy last-out trip, and you can see for yourself with this gray filly by the name of Little Bella. This was a race where, in hindsight, I think from that outside post and just not having a ton of early speed, put her behind the 8 ball, and although she'll run very well in this second-place finish back on March 15th, you do get a sense, even picking it up around the 5/16 pole, chasing 4 to 5 wide and losing all that ground. I mean, that is a very, very taxing trip to pull for any horse, let alone a lower-level claiming horse on the turf. And I was pretty impressed with her effort just kicking on to finish a clear-cut second, moving from an outside post down towards the rail, getting Joelle. I figured she would probably save ground this afternoon, and that might be quite simply the difference between that loss last time out and getting her picture taken. I also think she's looking at a pretty glib pace in this race. Real interesting horse, though, is the 9 Moon Eyes, who just has been a rare Mike maker, a relative new pickup out of the claim box, who has not moved up for Mike in 2 races off the claim. In fact, quite the contrary. Not that she's run poorly, but back-to-back losses as an odds-on favorite. I think Little Bella's going to have her number this afternoon, and just simply hoping for a better trip this go-round. Moving on to race number 6, we get down to business here with another 12-horse field on this Saturday card on the main track. 3-year-old fillies in this $25,000 to $20,000 maiden claimer, which, I mean, for better or for worse, I think for many of us is simply led by the Todd Pletcher trained number 4, the first time starting Bardo in this race, who's going out for trainer, or I should say for Todd and jockey Luis Saez. Now, Todd has not fired and it's only been, what, a 2-day meet so far of the spring season here at Gulfstream. Barnes 0 for 7. I thought that was worth kind of a disclaimer at the top of this quick discussion about today's sixth race, because within those 7 horses that didn't win, we've had a couple of big odds-on favorites who didn't run all that well. Cat Lady on Thursday comes to mind, and Off Topic in yesterday's featured 8th race comes to mind. But Todd's got good numbers, needless to say, here at Gulfstream with debuting maiden claimers on the dirt, and she probably just simply landed in the right field. Irish Thunder, the 5, is on the other side of the spectrum, where she's had a lot of chances and burned some money along the way, being winless in 10 starts. But to me, she seems, even despite the fact she's just a maiden in general sense of things, within her 10 races, she's been pretty good despite not winning, and other races maybe not so much. And I felt as though she might be set picking up Edgar Zayas to run one of her better races for trader David Fox. I'm going to go 4-5, and I've got the number 1, Ebony Bay, second out for Eddie Keneally, coming out of a 12-horse field here back in early February, in which Lori Lupes just ran away and hid. She's dangerous. I like that barn quite a bit with lightly raced horses, and looks well meant this afternoon, dipping in for a $25,000 maiden claiming tag. As we take a little time out on this edition of Gulfstream today, we'll be back with Ronnie's Rainbow 6 and 2 very good-looking allowance races deep into the program. Hey everybody, we are back on a beautiful Saturday here at Gulfstream Park, our opening Saturday card, opening weekend of this newly begun spring meet, and good to have your company. It is absolutely appreciated as we get tied on, and for good reason. Not only does this card, just in terms of maybe quality, pick up in intensity at this point, starting in the 7th race and certainly down the line in the 10th and 11th, but we do have that $300,000 guaranteed jackpot Rainbow 6 waiting for you. 20 cents gets you in the door, and our Gulfstream Park guru, Ron Nicoletti, who had a big Friday afternoon in the pick box, he's got a play coming up worth $48.60 as far as spreading and combinations go. He has got a single down the line, and I probably don't even need to look at the horse because race number 11 is that 3-year-old allowance, and I would imagine the 3, I don't remember. It's probably I'll Fight Dempsey, who I singled, in fact, a little teaser in my late pick 5. Yep, sure enough, Ronnie likes I'll Fight Dempsey, who we'll take a look at his maiden win in a few minutes here, and he turned some heads, obviously, in a well-bet debut that came up pretty fast, and there was absolutely some flattery here less than 24 hours ago when Candy Machine, who was second behind him, returned to break his maiden for trainer Chad Brown. 2-7-10 for Ronnie to start things out in this $300,000 guaranteed Rainbow 6, and I'm curious to see who he's got in this race. So he's got the 2 Crow Moon, and the appeal of that gelding shipping in from the Windy City, in fact, is the fact, well, he last ran in the Windy City. He's been training regularly here at Gulfstream for Larry Ravelli. That horse, the 2 Crow Moon, is the speed. Dark Ages on the rail is going to try to stretch out and go this distance. I think his talent level makes him a major player here. I'm still maybe a little ambivalent as far as him beating this field, going a mile, but all in all, a good spot for the 1 Dark Ages in for the 12-5. Ronnie also used the 7. I'm the captain now, and he is the biggest player on paper going in. Just already 7 days. It's almost hard to believe in a lot of respects that Florida Derby is already a week old at this point, and Barkley, fresh off a nice win in the Curlin Florida Derby with Tiz the Law, is back with the 7. I'm the captain now. And maybe just given the climate of the world these days, you might see some connections, maybe getting a little more aggressive as far as some dropping their claiming horses down, so to speak. And I think maybe that probably could at least tell a little bit of the tale with this horse who ran so well last time out for 20 and is in for the 12-5 with Louis Saez picking up the mount. Like Ronnie, I am very much in the camp of the 2-7, and he also used the 10 in that race, who's Mystical Moon. Got a good ride from Julian last time out. He'll pick up Dylan Davis. I guess the caveat with the 10 Mystical Moon, with his races of late pretty sharp, he is facing a tougher field. I get winter to spring, maybe the jump from 2 Lifetime to 3 Lifetime isn't all that drastic, but this is still a better group of horses than the one that he beat last time out on March 19th. Late pick 5 begins. Already told you my single. In fact, I've got 2. I'm standing alone with the 2 Ghostly Beauty, who I think holds, in her current form for Mike Maker, may hold a little bit of a class edge going this 2-turn trip on the turf course. And we've also got I'll Fight Dempsey in our co-featured 11th race. I obviously walked away from doing races 9, 10, and 12 with my head spinning. The 10th is a high-class allowance race. In fact, a number of stake-face horses there, and there's just a ton going on. I wanted coverage there. The 9th, I couldn't make heads or tails of. A lot of people may like Inter Miami. I don't trust that horse. I used him as one of 4 in there, but I want coverage in the 9th. And the 12th race is really about Avenida Manana. She's been so good winning her last 3, but, I mean, her margin for error in that race is basically a nose hair, and I don't know. I think her win streak might be in jeopardy this afternoon in a bulky field, so I wanted a 4-horse spread there. Getting back to Ghostly Beauty, this would have been a pretty key rematch with Looking Like a Queen. And that's one of the reasons I've got Ghostly Beauty singled now. Looking Like a Queen was an early scratch out of this 8th race. And what really caught my eye outside of the obvious with Ghostly Beauty was the trip that she had pulled last time out, where she was just chasing 3 to 4 wide. I'm glad we still have the one Looking Like a Queen highlighted, because you can just, even from this point on the far turn, you can compare racing luck and trips. And Looking Like a Queen in that white cap and the blue and white sleeves eventually angles out and will beat Ghostly Beauty. But in my mind, you know, the win, the sheer up win to second place finish doesn't really tell the tale, because this was a really tough trip and taxing trip for Ghostly Beauty, who had to give up ground around both turns and really fought on stubbornly in this race. Again, like I said, Looking Like a Queen may have outfinished her. I don't think there's any debate that Ghostly Beauty ran the better race, and if you reverse trips, it's not close that Ghostly Beauty wins. And, you know, giving me some confidence, she's in good form for Mike Maker off that claim back towards the end of December up in the Big Apple, and it does feel as though getting what Mike has helped her out, but even more so, I think routing on the turf has brought out her best colors. I like her as the favorite. I had toyed. I was so deep in the surrounding legs using 4 in the 9th, 10th, and 12th. I opted to trim the one Lady Panda from my ticket. If I was going to use another, or if there was a horse that scared me, in backing the favorite Ghostly Beauty, it absolutely is the one Lady Panda. Just looking at a horse, I like Lily Curtin a lot as a trainer. I think she's really, really great on the turf. And she strikes me, this Daughter of Animal Kingdom, as a horse who just, the best is yet to come with her, and she's still very much on an improve. Don't know if we're going to get improvement today from Ghostly Beauty, but I still feel like she's here and the others are kind of over here. That's the way I see race number 8 as we start the late pick 5. Moving on to the 9th, as I said, this was a very difficult race in my mind anyway, and I saw the 5 Inter Miami is pretty short on the morning line, and I guess he's a player here because, I mean, he's been, and I know us horse players, most of us are pretty opinionated as to where other people should run their horses. And I don't own this horse, But, I mean, this horse has been in some ridiculous spots at some crazy astronomical odds. And if you want to take out his run in the Mucho Macho Man, his grade 3 swale, and last time out in the Cutler Bay here, in fact, last Saturday on Florida Derby Day at 130 to 1, I mean, you're dealing with a horse who's won his only other 2 races when properly spotted. If there was one cautionary, I guess, fact that bothers me a little bit with him as he dips down on the 7-day turnaround, it's that win 2 back, and it was a slim victory at 7 to 5 odds. And I admit it, I like Flaming Hot and thought he may have had a little bit of a class edge in yesterday's second. He didn't lift a hoof out of that race as a round 6 to 5 or 7 to 5 favorite. So maybe that Florida bred win 2 back for Inter Miami isn't as strong as I first thought it appeared. And I think there's some horses in here, quite simply, who are very much on the improve. In fact, I am all JBMs in this race. I've got a couple of last out maiden winners, including Mo Beat You Bad. Love the name with this colt by Uncle Mo, who don't know what he beat, and this is clearly going to be not only a tougher spot in terms of quality, but as far as him getting loose on the lead, if he does control from down inside, he's probably going to have to run a lot faster than he did at Tampa. But I did like the improvement first to second time out with him with Jonathan Thomas at Tampa, and I'm going to take Mo Beat You Bad from that inside post. I think Dale Roman's horse, the number 4 Cigar Box, has gotten his act together, got a good fig and a dominant dirt win last time out here at Gulfstream. He could run well, and even the 6 Silverly Enough, who found and was a big favorite last time out. I think probably in 2020 hindsight, miles just too far for this horse, and he's back to a sprint. They're the 4, at least in my mind, major players, and I had a tough time making heads or tails really among that quartet that I just spoke of, so they have all found their way onto my late pick 5 ticket. Like this 10th race quite a bit. 2 real top shelf looking allowance races go late in this Saturday card, and we come up on this $100,000 optional claimer on the turf going a mile. I'm going to talk about a few of these horses here, but I think Penalty deserves sort of that first horse in status because he's run some big races over now kind of a wide gap in terms of months. One at Saratoga right around Travers time, and then last time out, and here's the race from February 22nd with this horse. Now, I was probably one of quite a few people that thought Largent was a mortal lock in this race, and Largent did run gigantic. But you can watch in those dark blue colors. I love the silks of Adil Dilschneider, just classic. The gray with the blue, and you can watch this 5-year-old son of Blaine crank up with that big 4 to 5 wide sweep, and he'll look Largent right in the eye and wear that horse down for a win that came up fast. I don't think you see anywhere near the 12 to 1 morning line on the 9 Penalty. I think he'll be a quarter of that, and I just think he's a major player. And to me, he was the biggest story coming back because this horse seemed to get his act together fairly late last summer as a 4-year-old and really liked what I saw in that 5-year-old debut. The flip side to all that entire dissertation, I mean, he was 30 to 1 last time, and I think he's probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 1 or 7 to 2 here. Moving on to our next horse that we'll discuss, the number 3 First Premio is back for trainer Mark Casse. They obviously, and that's one of the things I love about Mark Casse and his operation. Not only is it massive just in terms of multiple states and just sheer numbers of horses in the operation. Mark's not afraid to just run his. In fact, he does run his horses, and he's not afraid to take shots. So they aim pretty high with this 6-year-old son of Pure Prize, who just found the likes of the company and the Wise Dan and the Forbidden Apple and the Shadwell Turf Mile a little too much to handle. The more I looked around, though, and I don't know how strongly he's going to be bet, I don't think he looks really any better or worse, per se, than a horse like the one Colonist, who's going to be a much higher price, who was stake-faced last year in Southern California, and his first time Todd Pletcher. So, again, I don't know how strongly First Premio is going to be bet. If he is around 5 to 2 or 3 to 1, I'm willing to obviously leave him out of my super, and I'm using Colonist at a price. I thought the 2 Croy could come back running now with trainer Danny Gargan. He's a little tough to gauge, Croy, having only run 3 times last year in 2019, and one of those races was at 5 furlongs. Looked like they could just never really get into like a fluid groove with him, but he's back with a ton of back class. And then you've got Penalty towards the outside, and Halliday towards the outside. In fact, he'll bring up the rear in this classy cast, like his body of work for trainer Todd Pletcher, and I've got no knocks with him coming back from Tampa Bay Downs, picking up Luis Saez. I like that field that he caught last time out. That included March to the Arch in the Tampa Bay Derby. Moving on to race number 11, this is our feature on the program, and a good one and a worthy one at that, as we hit the main track for the final time today. And I am Todd Pletcher with Halliday in the 10th, and I'm right back here with a lot of people among the on the flanks of the number 3, I'll Fight Dempsey, who got bet. We had talked about and looked at this race, and for good measure, we're going to look at it again. We looked at it 24 hours ago because it was an important race with Candy Machine, who's second right now, chasing for Chad Brown, with that horse coming back and winning as a big favorite. And what can you say? I mean, you got a horse in I'll Fight Dempsey who got bet, ran fast, ran great in his debut, and has continued to work well since that spot. Now, there are a couple of key variables that are changing up from this race back on February 29th, which coincidentally was the Fountain of Youth undercard, and this allowance race today. It's probably a better field, even though we have a lot of respect for Candy Machine. And there's one really, really key horse. I say a better field, and that's likely due to the presence right next door of I'll Fight Dempsey, the number 4, Sonoman, who's a very pricey son of Curlin for Mark Hennig and Cortland Farms. And this was a horse like any good Mark Hennig trained 2-year-old, or maybe even early on in a 3-year-old campaign. Mark very much in the sort of old school vibe that I have in my mind. And you saw this horse in 3 races last season in the Big Apple take a step forward, take another step forward, and that culminated with his win at Belmont in early October, a good win that came up fast at a mile, and he did beat a next out winner in cost basis. So that's a good horse in Sonoman, and I think a worthy foe for the 3 I'll Fight Dempsey. They're clearly the big 2 going in, but you've got that great recent race here at Gulfstream for I'll Fight Dempsey. Acre deserves a quick mention. I had touched upon the Bilmont-trained Penalty in the race prior. This colt by Blame is a younger half-brother to Lee. Didn't run all that fast as far as his two races were concerned at Saratoga last summer, but I gave him credit for winning second time out at 7 furlongs, and no reason to think he won't come back and run well this afternoon. And we know his older brother Lee, who was a Don Handicap winner, loved it here at Gulfstream Park a few years ago. Let's wrap things up with the 12th race, everybody, and appreciate you sticking around as we drop the curtain with this older filly mare, $16,000 to $14,000 claimer. As I had noted in my late pick 5, the 8 Avenida Manana is very much the horse to beat in this spot, as she has beaten just about everybody, it seems, in this race, either last time out, 2 back, or 3 back. Looking at her wins, and she really has this uncanny ability or talent to know right where the finish line is, because she's won 2 crazy photos where she just got up in her last couple of starts, but they were super narrow, super tight photo finish victories. Now you're looking for 4 consecutive wins, which is hard to do no matter what level you're talking about, especially down towards the lower level claiming ranks here at Gulfstream, and you're running against another 11-horse field. I absolutely respect her. I put her in the 2nd spot, but I'm going to try to beat her with the 4 Sweet Story. Really liked her effort, and she lost a tough one in that aforementioned photo with Avenida Manana last time out, but that was her first race off the claim for Steve Caceres. I'm thinking she may take a step forward, 2nd time out, for an excellent turf barn with Joel Rosario up in the irons. So it's about 12:15. We've got 29 minutes on the clock here for race number 1, which is coming down the pike, and we don't have to wait that long, folks. Pete Aiello, in fact, standing by with those Saturday scratches and changes.